Assalamu alaikum everyone, Ajmal Khan from GrowthZone with another episode of Big Answers. In my last video, we discussed what happens at the moment of human death. Today I'm going to discuss something bit relevant, commonly known as near-death experiences. So actually what happens when somebody has a near-death experience? Right, okay. As I discussed, at the moment of death, the connection between body, spirit, and nerves breaks up. Nerves dies, body start to decompose and decay, and the spirit transfer from this dimension to another. So near-death experience means apparently the biological body appears to die. The life sciences, the medical sciences, whatever the measurements they take, just like heartbeat, pulse, blood pressure, things like that, they appear flat. So the doctors feel compulsive to declare the man or person has died. But what happens after a few minutes, after some time, after a variety of time in number of minutes, the person comes back to life, apparently conscious. All vital signs return immediately, and through then later on, if it was a result of a accident, uh, then person undergoes the treatment, management, improvement, healing, and ultimately recovers whatever the recovery would have been possible. But what happens in those few minutes when the medical science declares the person has died and they can't measure any vital body signs for life? Right. And those patients, those people, what do they report? That they could see or feel themselves floating in the air, and they could see their body somewhere else on the earth, on the ground, on the road, on the point of accident, and they could perceive what was happening with the body and people and environment around. All they could perceive from that floating entity of themselves, and they easily identify that floating entity to be themselves, and then they claim the body on the ground to be their body. So their perception, their labeling of I or myself changes from the structure of this body towards that entity, which is not a physical body but a form of entity, of energy entity, and it is the spirit. So in the near-death experiences, first of all, the conscious perceptual experience shifts from the brain, from our eyes, the vision of our eyes, to the nervous system or the processing system of the spirit and the visual sense of the spirit. Hence, that spirit starts to record the memories from its own perceptual viewpoint. Medical sciences and their equipment cannot measure vital body signs related to a live body. Does not matter. In most of these cases, these people, these patients, they don't have any brain damage. Most of us know if our brain does not receive oxygen for more than 6 minutes, it starts to decay and die, and brain damage does occur. But there have been cases of 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or in that vicinity. Those people had the near-death experience, but they never and did not suffer brain damage. All right. Another attribute of them, these people report that they felt that their spirit went through a tunnel of light. So actually, so what happens when the spirit feels traveling through the tunnel of light? very bright, shiny, blinding light. Actually, that is the interdimensional connectivity for the spirit from this dimension to the next dimension, where it finally gets transferred when somebody finally dies. But in these near death experiences, the spirit fails to travel through that tunnel of light, and usually in these cases, when people revive, the spirit come back and gets connected with the body, and the perception of that person shifts back to the vision of these eyes and this brain, and location of the perceptual experience and memories gets transferred back. But during that spiritual journey, because that whole sphere or the dimension is not dormant, is full of entities, full of energy, full of data flow, information flow. So those spirits experience certain things, they perceive certain information or certain data flow through them, and sometimes they get in contact with other beings existing at that dimension. Sometimes dialogues occur, sometimes exchange of information happens, and sometimes they are verbally, not in the sense of sound waves, but via the communication. Those spirits are told your time of death has not come yet, so you got to go back, and they come back and get connected with the body. So during that spiritual journey, those spiritual experiences have a deep effect on those people, and they have a life-changing impact on them. They sometimes lose their existing or pre-existing traits and approaches and ideologies, and they pick up new ideas and beliefs. They propagate certain things. Their personality change somehow. So there are so many variety of impacts of those experiences in these people. But actually, that's a spiritual experience which usually occurs as a result of a trauma or an accident, where for the moment the connection between the body and the spirit temporarily breaks up, perception shifts to the spirit, and the memory formation of those perceptual experiences goes and flows with the spirit, and spirit goes through a certain experience which becomes the part of personal memory. They are actual real experiences. This material science might not be there yet to experiment it, to prove it, to validate it, and to accept it, but they will one day. So the question arises, what happens with the third element or component of the human being during that period? Body goes through a medical shock or different changes when even people are declared dead for some time. Spirit and perceptual experience flows with the spirit and goes elsewhere. What's happening with these nerves? Okay, nerves goes into a dormant state. Apparently, such a dormant state which caused the physical biological body to appear dead, because for some time the flow or force of life goes to such a diminished level that medical science cannot measure its vital signs. But there's just kind of a faint state of nerves being inactive. But because the flow or the life force has not entirely finished and nerves has not died, hence when it comes back to its senses and becomes to the life again, the life force starts flowing through the body again. At that time the spirit comes back, and human being becomes a human being again as a full form. That body wakes up. Medically it can be measured. Nerves is awakened with its all needs and demands and pains and feeling of anger and fear and all those sort of things, and the spirit has come back to be joined back at its point of residence, which is the center between the four compartments of the heart, at the very central point where the ruh gets connected with the human being. But because this perception had gone with the spirit and its perceptual experiences, so when the spirit get back and gets joined with the body again, those perceptual experiences becomes part of human memory. Some are in conscious part, some goes in deep into the subconscious or unconscious level of storage, but they play their important part in the person's life afterwards. So these are the near death experiences, and all three components of human being, body, nerves and spirit, have their own experience through that time, and they usually happen under some traumatic experience as a result of an accident, and those are reported and happens to those people whose time of death as per their individual destiny had not come, so they continue their life on this earth until their final moment of death comes, and then this disintegration between among human body, nerves and spirit finally occurs for this life. I hope it might have answered many of your questions. I think it might have created new questions in your mind. As usual, contact me by any means. I'll try to answer those questions in next videos. Keep thinking, keep smiling. Ajmal Khan from GrowthZone. If you found the discussion interesting, please like, comment and share it. Also, please subscribe to my channel. Thanks a lot.